Love, light, peace, and abundance. Welcome to another episode of Poetry Unraveled. I am the curator of this space. Queen Essence is my poetry name. Goddess Robin is the frequency that I operate in at this time. If you're new here, welcome. Thank you for being here to share sacred space. If you are returning, uh, thank you. Thank you for returning. And I'd like to share that it has been a few weeks since episode of Poetry Unraveled has been broadcasted. And there have been a few reasons for that, all of them great, I promise. Um, there are times when I am called to go into sacred space and communion with Source, or to um, go within to integrate the downloads that I receive, much of which I share with you all in real time as I receive them. I also share them on my TikTok page as well. And there needs to be space for the messages to breathe, for them to ground, for me to integrate them. So it's not just something that I'm communicating, it's something that I've embodied. So when I share it, the vibration is more grounded versus just, lofty and floating. So, with that being shared, there are several ideas that resonate with me that it is time for me to share, and they're all going to circle around the same principle. Side note, little housekeeping. I do have a new setup. As you can see, I don't have the background, the virtual background. So I'm hoping that I don't look like, what do you call it, washed out, because I feel like the lighting is bright and the camera. I just feel like it's a lot going on. So I am willing that the picture is clear enough to capture your attention if you're a visual individual. And I also have a new mic set up. So it is my will that is coming across clear so that you can clearly hear the transmissions and receive them. So if there's any issues, be sure to let me know in the comment wherever it is that you're watching. All right, so during the time, the gap between the last communication transmission that I recorded, and now, there has been several transmissions that have come in pertaining to the power of our thoughts. And Source really wants me to transmit this broadcast because it is vitally important for us being here on Earth to navigate our way to remembering who we are, our divine connection to Source, and the purpose of why we came here as individuals, individual animations, and just forget it. Our unique purpose being the specific, unique fraction or portion, or embodiment, I'll say that way, embodiment of Source, right? And there has been like several ideas and several principles in how I've shared it. So I'm just going to allow it to come in the way that it resonates at this time. We spoke quite a bit about how everything is energy. Our thoughts are energy. Our thoughts are energy directed. And because they are energy directed, they have power in them, right? Whenever you have a thought, there's a base to your thought. The base of your thought gives the thought fuel, it gives it ammunition. And depending on what you're thinking about, it is where you direct the energy, right? So, and the thoughts that we have pertaining to ourselves, our circumstances, and the reality that we're in are very vital to navigating being here on Earth and remembering who you are and why you came here and your unique individual connection to Source. Now, before we get here, we have already agreed to come here to assist in whatever way it is that we agree to come here to assist with the universal plan that is unfolding, that's taking place, whether we're conscious of it or not. When we get here, we are born into situations and circumstances that would appear as though they're outside of our control. However, because we agreed to come here and we chose our parents, we selected the two individuals that came together to produce the body so that our entity, our spirit, our soul would have a body comprised of certain genetic makeup to be able to house the power that is us, the entity, the spirit, the energy that would come into the body when the baby is born. So in the unseen realms, we already had an idea of the circumstances that we were stepping into. It is when we get into the physical that we forget all that, because the veil of forgetfulness coming from the spiritual into the denseness of the physical, we forget. And we don't forget everything, which is why there's children who can still see the unseen beings and the angels, and they come on a certain level of awareness. When they're being cultivated properly, they can be able to hold on to it much longer. However, most children lose it around the age of, I think it's around 3, because that's usually around the time where they start going to school and they're being trained to be a certain way. But when they're carefree and they're able to just express themselves in their innocence, they still show and express the connection to the unseen, to the divine. So when we're born and we grow up in these circumstances with this family that we selected to be born into, the environment that we are in, it can feel like we have been dealt a deck of cards or a hand of cards that seems unfair. For some people, the deck that they have been given to play with, it is quite beneficial for some, right? However, for some of us, many of us, nothing. And we find ourselves having to navigate situations and circumstances that we did not help create, an environment that we did not contribute to. However, this is where the power of our thoughts come into play, because it is true that in this lifetime, we did not contribute to the circumstances in which we were born into. However, in another timeline, in another dimension, we chose those circumstances because we knew that being born into those circumstances would set up the right environment for the things that we needed to clear from past lifetimes, the karma that we agreed to come and clear, the generational curses, the specific energetic frequency that we came to shift. We would need to go through a certain set of circumstances that would prepare us for the assignment that is ahead. And ultimately, the circumstances and experiences that we have been born into would cultivate an environment to where we would start on the path of remembering who we are, what we came here for, and our divine connection to Source, our individual, specific, unique connection to Source. So when we are being developed, oftentimes our parents have not given to us, because it had not been given to them, the keys and understanding the power that our thoughts have in being able to navigate through the situations that we're born in, right? Many people see their situations as like from a perspective of a victim mentality. Some feel like they don't have any control over their situation and their circumstance. Some people feel like it's unfair and they're upset with God because of the situation and circumstances. And I'm not here to share if any of that is right or any of it is wrong, because everybody is entitled to feel how they want to feel, how they feel. They're entitled to think what they want to think, because free will really is a thing. I'm only here to offer another perspective, other thoughts to consider, to help regain your power so that you can shift and change the reality that you currently find yourself in. If it is that you are not pleased with the reality that you find yourself in, if you're someone who enjoys and appreciates your reality, I'm sure you'll find something in here. However, this is not necessarily directed towards you. This is for people who want to shift and change the reality that they're in. They want to elevate out of the situation, the circumstances that they find themselves in, because they feel like they did not have anything to do with creating the circumstances. And even if you feel like you created them, this is still going to be beneficial for you. So the power of our thoughts is recognizing that these situations and circumstances and you being in them is all for a reason. And the power lies in exploring why, the reason why you're in these situations. If you didn't think this before, consider if it's true that I chose these circumstances, I chose this environment, I chose these people to be the family that I would be born into, why would I do that? What lessons are available for me to learn? What principles are present for me to master in this dynamic that I found myself in, right? And when you start there, you'll start to see different ideas that within yourself you're capable of mastering, whether it be patience, whether it be listening, whether it be having compassion for others on their journey, because it's not easy being here on earth, right? And we already know that you can only give to another what has been given to you, what you have within yourself, and you cannot give what you do not have. So oftentimes we be looking for things from our parents, from our family, from our relatives that they never receive, so they're not capable of giving it to us. So then that brings up the question, okay, well, why didn't they receive it, right? So then you start to explore the different dynamics of what has taken place that's outside of just you, right? It causes us to take our thinking from a personal level to a more wider spectrum, a more universal level, if you will, to understand the energetic dynamics that's at play, right? So it's not just you that was born into the situation. There were others as well. However, there's something unique about you that the others either had and didn't know, or they didn't have the courage or the bravery or even the strength. You know, some people are so beat up by being here on earth and the circumstances and the density of being here that they don't even want to try. However, if you resonate with my frequency and you resonate with the transmissions that come through me, then I trust that you're someone that does have the strength. You are simply looking for guidance and a little understanding to help you remember so that you can navigate on a different frequency. So, the power of our thoughts, when you see your situation and your circumstance from a higher perspective, and even if you're not able to get high, just look at it from around the corner, like look at it from a different angle to see what you can see differently than what you've seen before. And then take those ideas and implement them, right? Like live them to the best of your ability. So if you see that, the situation is a result of a continued lineage, passing down of trauma through the matriarchal line, right? And you recognize that, then you do your best to not pass it down or to replace what is being passed down, with something more positive, more high vibrational, something that you would like to, something that you would have liked to receive yourself, right? So I know that there is some people who recognize that the maternal love and care and nurturing is not there the way that they would have liked to have been loved on and cared for and nurtured as a child, as a young adult, and even as an adult. So since you can identify that, like Your mom didn't have it to give you because her grandmother didn't give it to her, and her grandmother before her. You recognize the chain. So you say to yourself, you know what, I'm going to change that with my daughter or any other, female or loved one that I interact with. I'm going to change that. But mainly it starts when we have our own children, because you can't get away from being a parent, right? Like you can decide you don't want to pick up your nieces and your nephews that day. However, when you have children, you're on 24/7, 365. There's really no days off unless you got a partner and y'all working together. But nevertheless, just make the conscious decision that you're going to change it, right? Like you're going to do something different. I always had the thought when I was growing up that I understood that my mom gave me the best that she could. She gave me the best of what she had. However, I was going to give my daughter and my sons more, better. I was going to do better, right? The things that she did with me that I said to myself when I was growing up, I'll never, do the so to my daughter, or, I'll never do this and that to my son. That was me having the thoughts to change the reality that I was born into, the bloodline that I was born into. And in me having those thoughts, it provided an opportunity that when I did have children, that I did things differently, right? My daughter will say, and they tease me because I've said throughout their development, particularly when they got older, but throughout their development, that, I would have found myself getting up off the floor had I done thus and so, thus and so. And, we laugh about it, and, they say I get on their nerves sometimes with me saying it. However, I remember one time I was speaking with my daughter, and she told me that she really appreciates the fact that I did choose to develop them differently than how my mom developed me, because she can't even imagine the idea of getting up off the floor. And if you're from the generation I'm from, or you've heard stories, you know what I mean when I say found myself get up off the floor. However, this is a tangible example of what I'm sharing, right? Sometimes we find ourselves in situations where we look up and we're trying to figure out, how the hell did I get here, right? And when we shift our thinking concerning the situations that we're in, we get to see the power of our thoughts. Our thoughts are powerful. We build worlds, we create worlds from our thoughts. I think about the time of Atlantis. Atlantis built worlds and technology from thoughts, right? This is how powerful our thoughts were, because they had honed in on the ability, they had not lost the knowledge of the power of energy and being able to direct the energy from our thoughts to create and build. We still have that same power and ability. We just need to wake it up within us. Many different factors go into play with this. Our diet goes into play, hydration, H2O goes into play, being at peace or having a place of peace within ourselves, or a place that we go to ground ourselves. Having a openness and a willingness to release the narratives that have been playing in our minds for as far back as we can remember, releasing the narratives that we embodied, right? The costumes, the characters that we embodied, and having a willingness to go back to the original source, right? Like the original connection to source. When we have a willingness to pursue our connection, not just a relationship, but our connection with the Most High, with God, with Source, however, the universe, however you identify the divinity that you acknowledge, this is where our world begins to be reshaped, right? Because we tap into an unseen current, an unseen reality that has always existed, We just weren't in a place to recognize it. And all of this takes place from our thoughts. So if you find yourself in a situation or a circumstance that's not pleasing, right? Like you feel like there's no way out. You feel like every time you put one step in front of the other, you end up getting pulled 3, 6 steps back. I want you to know that that's happening for a reason. And if you are willing to surrender to the process and explore it from a curiosity of what's happening and why is this happening and what is available for me to learn, because you may not always get the answer of why it's happening. However, you will be able to see what is it in this situation that's available for me to learn. What can I master? What can I sharpen? What can I release? What no longer serves me? And then you going through this process, you begin to find how you think about things differently, right? The way that things used to annoy you or irritate you or affect you is not the same way. It doesn't affect you the same way. The way that you used to perceive certain circumstances and situations and even people, you'll find that you don't perceive it that way anymore because you have grace, you have compassion, and you have a level of understanding that everybody's walking a unique journey, right? And even when people mean you ill will or they mean to do you wrong, it's only a reflection of something that's going on in them. So it's really not even about you. Sometimes your light shines so bright it irritates. The elders used to say in the church, you irritate or agitate their spirits, their demons, right? However, what's really happening is that you're showing them a reflection. And it's something in the reflection that they're not ready to see. They're not willing to acknowledge. So instead of doing the stand-up thing, right, doing the righteous thing, which is to go inward, they rather direct that energy outward. However, ultimately, it's really not about you, though, right? You're simply a mirror showing them something that they're unwilling to accept at that time. And don't get me wrong, there are some people who are intentionally directing energy, but even that is a result of something within them, right? Something about your light is rubbing against something in them that's making them uncomfortable, so they're acting out. However, when you're aware that your thoughts shape your reality, not what anybody else thinks, not what anybody else says, not what anybody else feels, it is your thoughts that shape your reality. It is what you feel and what you think that shape your reality. Then you take your power back when you recognize and understand and accept that you are source embodied. You are a physical expression of source in form. And you don't need anybody else to solidify or to acknowledge or verify your connection to source. If you feel it in your heart and it resonates throughout your being, and the results of you pursuing whatever the connection is bettering your life, then why would you need someone to intercede? And if it is true, and it is, that we are all the Most High's children because we all came from the original source, then why is one specific individual who was acknowledged by whomever, why is their connection any greater to source than yours or mine? Right? I think about the principle of the eldest children, right? The eldest son and the eldest daughter. They hold a responsibility of going first to learn the lessons. So they make the different mistakes. They touch the pan when mom said don't. They climb on the beds when dad says get down. And they get the spankings, right? But they learn the lessons and they receive the wisdom from the experiences, and then they pass it on to their younger siblings so that they don't have to learn the same way they did. However, they take that wisdom and they implement it the way that it fits most with them. So that same principle happens spiritually. There's some of us who have the connection to source ahead of others, right? We recognize and remember our divine connection to source before some of our other siblings. So that makes us, it makes us the older brothers and sisters, the elders, right? The eldest sisters and brothers. And then we then share with our younger brothers and sisters in spirit the lessons that we learned, right? The things that we went through, the things we transversed, and what we received, and what helped us to remember. And that's simply what I'm doing, right? I've gone through the journey, I've gone through the process, I've walked my divine path, and I'm still walking it. However, I've walked enough of it to where I remember. And I will to assist you in remembering as well, because the unique expression that you are is needed. We are all here for a unique purpose. And I understand that not everybody's going to answer the call. Some people are going to watch this and they're going to think I'm bugged out. And I'm okay with that. I'm perfectly fine with that. Some people are going to think I'm tripping. Some people are going to listen. It's going to go over their head. However, the right people that are ready, they're going to listen, and something in you is going to resonate. Something's going to spark. You don't have to resonate with exactly what I say. It could be something that I said that triggered something in you, a memory, a feeling, and it can be the spark to start you on your journey to remembering who you are, why you're here, and your unique connection to Source. And that is more than enough to say that I've completed, or not completed because I have so much more to do. However, that I'm being successful in my purpose. So I will, and I look forward to, and I send intentions that this reaches you exactly when you need to activate you and initiate and inspire you along your journey. And if you've been here before, you know it is about that time to where I read a poetic selection. And if you are new here, I read a poem at the end of each episode. And throughout my the gap in my recordings, I have grown to understand that these poems are transmissions. They are sacred offerings, not only to the listener, however, to Source as well. And there's so much to be experienced in these transmissions when they are listened from your heart, right? Because I write from my heart to touch something in yours. And I've written several new pieces, and there is one in particular that I would like to share with you. And it is my will that you receive um, the activation that is available in this transmission. So I'm going to pull it up now, and I am going to read it for you. I thank you for sharing space with me. Thank you if you have been here from the beginning to the end. Thank you. We are going to go a little over 30 minutes. So I ask that you show me grace. This is entitled, I Remember Me. I used to outsource my power to those who offered only lip service, their words echoing through hollow rooms, empty of substance, clinging to people I thought loved me. But now, I find safety and sanctuary within the vastness of my own energy. I no longer search outside myself for what has always lived deep within me. I once believed that validation was a currency others could grant me, but now I know their counterfeit cannot match the gold pressed into my bones. I reclaim the scattered fragments from the mouths of false prophets, and with every breath, I call my power home. No longer do I knock on closed doors, begging for warmth. I have become the flame. I dance in the temple of my own stillness, each inhale a hymn, each heartbeat a drumbeat of divine belonging. I used to fear the silence, mistaking it for loneliness, but now I know it is the voice of Source, speaking in the quietest tones beneath the noise of who I thought I had to be. I drink from the wellspring of my own essence, no longer parched by the drought of external approval. The mirror I trust is the one reflecting my soul's glow, not the ones distorted by projections and need. I walk barefoot on the earth of my becoming, feeling each step as a prayer, each moment a page in the scripture of my unfolding. I no longer perform for belonging. I remember I am the belonging, a temple wrapped in skin, a galaxy cloaked in form, a divine echo of all that ever was and ever will be. I no longer silence myself to make others comfortable. My truth is not too loud, it is liberation. Each word I speak now rings with the authority of stars, forged in the fires I've survived. I've shed skins made of expectations, peeled back layers of shoulds and shames, and stood naked in the presence of my soul, unashamed, unafraid, untamed. Now I speak in the dialect of the divine, language laced with lifetimes, sentences shaped by sovereignty. I do not need to be understood, only aligned, only true, only free. I am the prayer my ancestors whispered when they couldn't speak aloud, the embodiment of their hope, walking as the answer, living as the hymn. I no longer chase what dims my light. I no longer cradle illusions, hoping they'll transform into truth. The veil has lifted and I have seen myself, not in fragments, but in fullness. I am not who they named me. I am who I've always been beneath the stories, beneath the survival, a sovereign frequency too vast for cages, too ancient for compromise. I wear my healing like a crown, woven from tears turn holy, wounds turn wisdom, scars turn starlight. Now I choose me in every timeline, in every breath, not out of ego, but out of reverence for the divine design I've been entrusted to carry. I rise as the keeper of my own light, unyielding flame in a world of shadows, carrying the weight of stars in my veins, the legacy of lifetimes in my breath. And in this sacred choosing, I find my peace, knowing that to be whole is to be free. And so it is. Ashe, Amun. Thank you. Thank you for sharing sacred space with me. I look forward to our next time. I will that this transmission has been received in the frequency of love, peace, and abundance that it was given in. Until the next time.